Have you ever wondered what happens when two lost souls find each other in the most unexpected way? This is a story that will touch your heart and remind you of the power of compassion. In the rugged canyons of northern Arizona, Ethan Walker had spent over 2 decades riding the trails of his family's vast ranch. But on one fateful afternoon, he encountered something that would change his life forever. As Ethan guided his trusted gelding Scout along a familiar ridge, he noticed movement in the distance. At first, he thought it might be a deer, but as the figure emerged from behind a boulder, Ethan's heart skipped a beat. It was a wild foal, no more than 4 months old, its coat dusty and ribs visible through its thin frame. The sight was unusual. Wild foals rarely ventured far from their mothers. This one, however, was alone and clearly in distress. Its steps were unsteady, its head hung low, but its eyes. Those eyes held a glimmer of hope as they met Ethan's gaze. "Where's your mama, little one?" Ethan whispered, his voice carrying on the wind. The foal took a shaky step towards him, defying all natural instincts. Ethan raised his binoculars for a closer look and noticed something that made his chest tighten. A faint scar around the foal's neck, likely left by rope. Someone had tried to capture this wild creature before. Ethan found himself at a crossroads. Every rational thought told him to back away, to call the authorities and let them handle it. But as he looked into those trusting eyes, he heard the voice of his late wife, Carolyn. She had always believed in second chances, always been the one to bring home strays and orphans. "Everything deserves a chance," her words echoed in his mind. "Sometimes we're the only chance they get." With a deep breath, Ethan made his decision. "All right, little one," he said softly. "I guess we're going to figure this out together." It took nearly 2 hours of patience and gentle coaxing before Ethan managed to get the foal onto a canvas tarp. Too weak to resist, the young horse allowed Ethan to secure him carefully. Scout, seeming to understand the gravity of the situation, carried his fragile cargo down the rocky trail with unusual care. Back at the ranch, Ethan's foreman, Miguel Alvarez, greeted them with surprise. "Senator Walker, what in the world have you brought home?" "A problem," Ethan admitted, unwrapping the tarp to reveal the exhausted foal. Together they converted an old equipment shed into a makeshift nursery. Ethan drove into town for supplies while Miguel prepared the space with straw and extra lighting. As night fell, the foal lay curled in the corner, breathing shallow but steady. Kneeling beside him, Ethan murmured, "We'll call you Gabriel, messenger, survivor." The days that followed were long and challenging. Gabriel needed feeding every few hours, and Ethan rarely left his side. Slowly, the foal regained strength. First standing longer, then nibbling at hay, and finally exploring his new home with cautious curiosity. For the first time since Caroline's passing, Ethan felt a sense of purpose rising in his chest. Caring for Gabriel filled the hollow places grief had carved inside him. But word spread quickly in their small community. Neighbors whispered about the cowboy raising a wild horse on private land. It wasn't long before Sheriff Daniel Brooks paid Ethan a visit. "Ethan, I know your heart's in the right place," Brooks said gently, "but this is against regulations. You know what the BLM would have done with an orphan foal?" "Do," Ethan replied quietly. "And that's why I couldn't leave him. Caroline wouldn't have forgiven me." The sheriff sighed, promising to buy Ethan some time, but warned that eventually the federal authorities would come knocking. 3 weeks passed, and Gabriel grew stronger each day. His coat began to shine, his eyes brightened, and he greeted Ethan with soft nickering whenever he entered the shed. Then one morning, everything changed. Miguel came running, breathless with excitement. "Ethan, North Fence Line, you need to see this." They rode hard to the boundary of the property. And there, standing tall and gaunt, but magnificent, was a bay mare. She was calling out, her cries echoing across the canyon. And from the ranch came an answering cry. "Gabriel." The truth hit Ethan like a thunderbolt. This wasn't an orphan after all. The foal had been separated from his mother, perhaps during a roundup or by poachers, and she had been searching for him ever since. The mare paced the fence, frantic to reach her baby. Gabriel kicked at his pen, calling back with the raw urgency of recognition. "Dios," Miguel whispered. "That's his mama." Dr. Rachel Morgan, a wild horse specialist, arrived with a BLM representative to assess the situation. Initially, there was talk of protocols and permits, but when the foal and mare cried out for each other, even the officials' resolve softened. Carefully, they moved Gabriel into a paddock. The mare approached cautiously at first, then broke into a trot, her calls sharp and trembling. Gabriel answered, galloping to meet her. Their reunion was instant, primal, and undeniable. The mare groomed her foal furiously, nuzzling and checking every inch as if to erase the weeks of separation. Dr. Morgan watched in awe. "This is extraordinary," she said, her eyes shining. "A reunion after weeks apart, and their bond is completely intact." Ethan stood at the fence, a whirlwind of emotions coursing through him. Joy, sorrow, and pride. He had saved Gabriel, but now it was time to let go. The BLM agreed to release the pair together into protected wild horse territory fitted with GPS collars for research. Their movements would be studied as part of a new program on family bonds in wild herds. That evening, Ethan spent one last hour with Gabriel. The foal pressed his nose to Ethan's chest, breathing warm and steady. Ethan stroked his neck, whispering, "You did it, son. You survived. You're where you belong now." The mare stood nearby, calm, almost seeming grateful. As the sun began to set, Ethan opened the gate. Mother and foal walked side by side into the open range, their silhouettes fading against the canyon horizon. At the crest of the hill, Gabriel paused, glancing back once before following his mother into the wild. 6 months later, Dr. Morgan's team sent updates. Gabriel had thrived, growing into a powerful young stallion, roaming with his mother across hundreds of miles of Arizona backcountry. On quiet evenings, Ethan often rode to the ridge where he had first found Gabriel. He carried his old leather journal, filling its pages with observations of wildlife, weather, and the eternal cycles of the canyon. And every now and then, carried on the wind, he heard the distant call of wild horses. Perhaps it was Gabriel, perhaps not. But to Ethan, it always sounded like a promise, that love freely given creates bonds that endure beyond distance, beyond time, beyond loss. In the end, this unexpected friendship born from pain had not only saved a young horse, but it also healed a man's broken heart, reminding us all of the profound connections that can form between humans and animals. When we open ourselves to compassion and second chances,